What's up, guys? Welcome back to Be Better Podcast and a crazy milestone for us, episode 25. Can't believe we're here. What a better way to start episode 25 than a good guest of ours, Jake Bishop. Jake, how you doing?
Good, man. I'm very happy to be on and celebrating your 25th.
Yeah, man, what an honor to have you on. 25 is a huge milestone, and like I said earlier, I can't think of a better guest to have on than you. So, Matt, go ahead, take it away. I know you guys already know each other well, so I'll let you kind of lead this conversation. I'm just excited to learn about you, Jake.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, Jake. So, um, why don't you start off by telling us your story? Start from the beginning, and we'll go from there.
Man, you got it, man. Hey, I'm glad to see you doing this, and thanks for asking me to come on too.
Hey, it's all a pleasure of ours.
So yeah, I mean, I think I'll start from the start. Um, I started doing some drinks when I was 13 years old. The time I was 15, I had been able to find out, well, I can purchase cocaine. Uh, I was selling marijuana by the time I was 15 too. And I think I got ingratiated in that kind of lifestyle. I mean, drugs do have a lifestyle of their own. And I think with not really having a strong identity myself, it was a good way to delve in and not have to deal with some of the things that we deal with as men, certain traumas that we go through. And that's how we negotiate it. So, I mean, from the start, I think, drugs affecting it, some criminality too. Um, being a criminal, it means finding shortcuts and opportunities where other people might feel like there's some resistance. You're willing to go that extra mile just to be able to get something selfishly. And so I started racking up small charges. By the time I was 17, I had a armed robbery charge. Due to a technicality, I got out of it. And by the time I was 19, I had already received my first DWI. Something about drinking and driving was just something in my head that like, oh, it's a normal thing, and I got out of it. I always say, don't never get a good attorney because you will never learn anything. The worst thing you can do is get a terrific attorney because if they get you out of it, you learn nothing and you feel invincible. And then it slowly started to turn into my drug addiction was getting worse. My DWIs, I had a couple more, but I was also really good at sales. So I love doing sales. I would be able to carry that into work. And then it started to move into other things. I was starting to meet people who were telling me, hey, I heard about what you did. Maybe you want to be able to just come hang out. You want to go talk. And that's how it begins. They tell you what you want to hear. They tell you some things. Hey, we'll protect you if this comes up. Are you okay? Can we come and have you over for dinner? And you slowly start to boil in charm. You're just slowly boiling in charm. And you're like, oh man, this is fantastic. And then the money starts coming in. So at that point, I was starting to get into trafficking and distribution, or at least being accused of it. Um, and by the time I was, 23, 24, I had already been arrested for 133 pounds of marijuana in South Dakota. So, I mean, I don't know. I used to laugh because in South Dakota, there's a giant sign and it's written with paint. Do you remember the little teacup and the teapot from Beauty and the Beast?
Mhm.
The chip?
Yeah.
Well, it used to have pictures of them on the sign and it would say, hey, listen, if you're trafficking narcotics, be prepared to be our guest for the next 30 years. And I used to laugh at that. I was like,
Schmucks.
we're fine. I don't got to deal with that. I got arrested like a half a mile away from that sign.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and I was brought in. They were trying to say stuff like, "Oh, we don't even have to we'll put the cuffs on loosely. We want to have you get to where you're going. If anything, we don't want to stop you, but we want you to work with us." I'm like, "I'm not going to do that." He's like, "Well, you're going to be facing some serious charges." And so I ended up having to go through court in South Dakota.
Sounds
I think
challenging.
that was probably one of the peak moments for me to start rethinking my life.
So I think that was pretty interesting what you said. I want to unpack that, and I know there's more, but I want to unpack it kind of piece by piece so we stay on track.
Hmm.
Addiction is something that's been heavy hitting in my family, right? Multiple people have been afflicted with the disease, and all that good stuff. So how did you overcome that, right? And really, actually, before you overcame it, you said like, 13, 14, 15 or so, you were kind of getting acclimated to that addiction lifestyle. Like, what is your, other than that, like, did you have a rock bottom moment that you were like, fuck, I really need to clean myself up? Or,
Yeah, yeah. It's a good question about that because, it wasn't until I was doing a podcast maybe 3 years ago about my recovery with somebody, and they asked me about, oh, like how do you get started at 13 years old? And I was like, oh, I, I think I just got curious because alcohol was in the drawer and I was having a hard time at school. And I realized it was even before that. My my mother, I knew how to make a Manhattan. My mother loved to drink, and she would have the little maraschino cherries at the bottom of her glass.
Mhm.
And I was a kid, I'd be like, hey, can I have those? "Oh, the cherries, but they're filled with something. I
right.
pop them out. And I was like, huh. And then every time she made a drink, I was like, huh, oh my God. I was like, that's when I had my first taste of like liquor.
Yeah.
And then one day I think I just said, oh, I don't really need to wait for my mother. I'll just make my own Manhattan and
Right.
just put the cherries in there and I'll have my own drink. Plus I get the cherry. And then by the time I was 13, I remember I went on vacation. I bought myself a flask. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I started putting in like all sorts of just terrible, but wine mixed with vodka, mixed with whiskey. And I would just have this
Little
disgusting,
cocktail.
yeah, and I would drink it before school. So I think that's kind of where I got a little bit of a taste for it going into it. Um, my rock bottom was, 2019, man. There's no doubt. I had been, I had gone out. I was thinking about getting some cocaine. I was drinking. That was just the norm for me. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go out. I got into the car. I drove off, and I remember blacking out. And there was very few times I blacked out in my life. I mean, maybe twice. But I thought that I was going to get cocaine to get me back up, which is what we do. We, medicate ourselves with it, like we're chemists. And I ended up getting into a chase with the police. I went through the
Wow.
city and two towns back over to a neighborhood that I knew. I actually lost the cops. I was able to drive off, and I don't even remember doing it, but that was something that I
While blacked
say I'm
out?
proud of, but I've done before. Um,
While blacked out?
well, blacked out, yeah.
Wow, it's like something
And
from GTA, man. It's like that's
yeah,
crazy. Even from
it
life,
was
right?
definitely 5 star. In fact, I remember there was a moment when I was driving, and the only thing that stopped me was I had crashed my own car. I had left them. I crashed my car. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. My head hit the windshield.
Mm.
I don't even remember getting out. So I had probably a concussion, and I was trying to get in touch with a friend, and I said, "Can you pick me up?" And he said, "Listen, I am not exaggerating. There's probably about 25 cops out here, like in this town, looking for you, like right now." He said, "A bunch of the past." He said, they're going through parking lots trying to find you." And I'm like, "Can you get to me?" He's like, I don't. I mean, you're on foot. I don't know." And then state troopers showed up, sheriff showed up. I resisted arrest. I assaulted an officer, and they put a German Shepherd, got me canine right on my leg, took me down, took me to jail. And I realized I'm in the same jail cell I was when I was 17 for armed robbery in the city of Rochester, in the same cell. And I'm thinking I'm also in the same cell I had my first DWI. And the next morning, they took me in front of the judge on a Sunday, who had to get up on a Sunday morning,
That's big
Judge
shit.
Muller.
For those out there who have never been arrested, if the judge has to come into work on a fucking Sunday, that's big shit.
That's you pretty much know whatever it is going to be the full extent, the full weight of this guy is about to come down on you. And he looked really disappointed. I mean, he just saw me and he said, and he knew my record. I mean, I was from the town, and he came up with I had a great attorney. His name's Steve Leonardo, and he was just he got me. He got me out of it, but he got me. I mean, oh, and this is the worst part. I was still on felony probation from St. Louis for assaulting an officer. at that time, I was still on parole from South Dakota for the trafficking and distribution.
God,
I had
shout out
just
to you.
finished house arrest in St. Louis, went back to Rochester. Then I'm looking at it, and he's like, "Wait a minute, I'm the same judge from when you were 19." He says, he's like, "You're 29 now." He said, "But you're 19. So 10 years ago, you had the same charges of assaulting an officer, DWI." He's like, "You've had no progress." I'm like, "I actually have. I'm actually on a part of a restaurant here." And I don't care. He's like, "What progress you made?" And he said, "I'm going to listen to your attorney and we're going to grant you bail." He said, "But I don't know if I'm signing your death warrant or somebody else's by releasing you today." And that was just
Wow.
embarrassing. That was my rock bottom. My leg is ripped apart by a dog. I've got to deal with this. I've crashed. I am a danger to myself and I'm a danger to other people because I can't control myself and I'm made no progress. I mean, it doesn't matter if you have $1 million in your bank account or $1. If you have a drug addiction and you're putting yourself in harm's way, it doesn't really matter. Jail cell is still going to be the same for you, no matter what. So I took it personally, and I just remember those first few weeks of like, I want to deal with this, but I want to deal with it after I do some coke, and I'll have one last hoorah. And then it became a month, and I'm like, I feel better with that. I don't need to do that. And then it became a few months, and I thought, okay, well, I got to go back to court, back and forth, and I kind of want to show them I'm not going to screw up anymore. And I wanted myself to believe that too. And I got a dog. Ironically, I got a German Shepherd. I'm like, I know they're effective for self-defense and protection. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
Her name's Allie, and she was from a rescue. I went to go see her, and I said, "Does she know how to sit?" And she sat. I said, "Does she know how to lay down?" And she lay down. I was like, "That's the one." And she was just so sweet. So I started taking her out every single day. I started going to the gym, or should I say, walking to the gym because I didn't have my license. And I went to a place called Rock Recovery Fitness in Rochester. It's a place that's a gym for people who want to be sober. And I took a boxing class, and I had boxed when I was younger. And I thought, this is a weird transition. I thought these were going to be a bunch of like hippie, peace-loving people. And some of them were. Like I never got along with people in AA, and I thought it was kind of cultish a bit. But the people respected the fact that I was there, and I respected the fact that they were there. And I thought that's a commonality I can work with. So I that was my rock bottom. That was me getting some time in, and about after a year and a half, my court case was closed, and I just had to do probation. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, probation. It would just happen to work out that the people, my felony probation officer down from St. Louis said, "I will base whatever happens in Penfield. So if he finds you guilty, we're going to send you back here, and you're going to do the time that you were supposed to do." And I'm like, "Oh well, I'd rather not do that." So he said, "Well, you got to show me something." So I did. I started volunteering. I started helping people. I made a radio show with Tony Gingello, who was my mentor. He was like my father, my uncle, and he changed my life. He gave me an opportunity. He was a former, I always say it, Italian American subculture. I'll send you guys some clips of him when he was younger and he had been charged for gambling, rackets, and stuff. But he changed his life around and he wanted to be able to help people. And I said, I want to work with that. So I started meeting him politicians for the radio show. And then it became, can we do community feedings? I said, sure. And it just evolved into an organization.
That's beautiful, man. That's admirable. Like that's awesome. And I'm
Oh,
sure everyone appreciates it.
Yeah,
Um,
I know I do, man, and I'll tell you why. Both my parents, and I don't talk about this too often, but both my parents are hardcore drug addicts, and it's plagued my life, right? I mean, I've seen it firsthand, growing up without parents, trying to figure out your way because of a fucking substance abuse where, at the end of the day, dude, like the people that are addicted like yourself, and you know what I'm talking about back in the day, you're picking that ailment over anything else, family, friends, loved ones, anything, right? Going to work, whatever. So to see somebody like you have a significant problem like that and just have the willpower, because it all starts internal, right? I could tell my parents to get clean for the next 150 years, dude, and it could not do anything, right? It's all internal. It's all internal. Every step of the way is internal. And for you to have that willpower to realize that, unfortunately, you made some mistakes. It is what it is, dude. We're fucking
Yeah.
humans, right? It is what it is. We're human beings. We make mistakes. But for you to have the strength and the willpower to go through and do that and make that executive decision, like I'm changing my life now before it's too late. Uh, Dude, I have so much respect for you. And I just want to say thank you so much and hopefully if anybody out there that ever listens to this that is struggling with addiction, look at Jake as a prime example of like what can happen and what can be, because here shortly we're going to learn a little bit more about his path now of righteousness and triumph, right? So, what's next after you beat the addiction? And first of all, St. Louis, anybody out there that's listening, St. Louis, talk to your fucking alderman about getting that gym like what Jake went to out here. We do not have anything like that here.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for sharing that too, Nate. That means a lot.
Yeah.
I have to come to terms with some of the stuff with my family members and my parents about either drinking or about stuff that went on when I was younger. And when I hear you talk about it, it means a lot too that we can share that together here. I want this to be a safe space for men. I mean, it's important that we have that community too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, we all know mental health, as long as pretty much paired up with addiction, is some of the most biggest epidemics that our nation affixes, right? Or excuse me, faces. And
Yeah. Key.
for us, right, and for us to have this open conversation, just us three men here, the dialogue that we have, it's tremendous of value. So the feel is mutual, my friend. But yeah, please continue. I want to learn. Now I'm on the fucking edge of my seat. I want to learn kind of like what's next in the journey. What happened next?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, a little bit of it, I'll go back to South Dakota. I got out and, I had a court case that I was going through. And I'm like, shoot. And I thought, I'm getting out of Rochester. I came back. I mean, so to give you an idea, 133 pounds is $160,000 cash. But when you buy it in California, when you bring it back, the street value is up to about $450,000 in New York. So, I was like, I thought we had nothing. I was really feeling desperate back then. So going to St. Louis, and I'll tell you this, it doesn't matter if it's New York, Miami, whatever, cocaine is cocaine. I found it in St. Louis. I went through a big phase there, and I think that's where it pushed me because I actually got into crack cocaine when I was in St. Louis. It was just, it was one of those things. Like I remember at the mutual place that Matt and I met, that business venue.
Yeah.
I felt like I worked very well as security.
You
I
did.
would
I
say,
mean, I never suspected anything, right? It was all good moments. And I obviously can be oblivious, right? And I'm hyper focused on my duties, of course, and the situation. But yeah, no, I mean, until I think later you end up telling us towards the end of my time. But I was like, huh, never knew.
yeah,
I thought you're just
no,
hyped up all the time. Like, oh man, I love his energy.
I was always a little excited back then, but I remember like I had a Cadillac. What was it? South City. I went to some Mexican restaurant. They had these Cadillac margaritas that were just like, the size of your head. And I
Mm,
thought, all right, well, I'll just have one before work. And I was like, well, I'll just balance it out because I was like, listen, every half gram for one Cadillac is. I'm like, and my dealer was like, I can't make it right now. I can meet you there, but not till 10 o'clock. I'm like, listen, I've got work at 8 o'clock and I'm trying to be professional so I can get there on time and do my job. So at the time I had a roommate that had smoked crack cocaine. And I was like, that's so poor and petty. That's disgusting. And then I was like, wait a minute. I was like, listen, I was drunk enough. I'm like, oh, I'll try it. I'll give it a shot. So I went in, I gave him some cash and I was like, how much does like this get me? He's like, oh, okay. And I was like, what, is that a lot? He's like, yeah, take a chance. Like, okay, well, and I said, what do I do? He showed me how to do it. I dropped in. He's like, that's way too much. I'm like 235 pounds. I think I know what I'm doing.
it's
And
about
it was a lot. And I remember it was a lot like that feeling from what's that movie with DiCaprio?
oh,
Uh,
Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street. It was a lot like that. I was like, whoa. And everybody was terrified of me because I was like, just like, oh, and I was
Yeah.
like, all right, I got to go to work. I was like, that got me up. I'm going to go to work. And I didn't touch it again for another 2 months because I was like, yeah, it's okay. And then I had bad times, and then stuff made it just all connected at the wrong time. So I think that's when I went to Rochester, I started getting into crack cocaine again, uh, back in 18 and 19, 2019. So getting off of that, plus alcohol, plus cocaine, for me after getting arrested was hard because it's just such an easy, instant satisfaction that you
It's
can get.
everywhere, man. I mean, dude, like I'm gonna sound like a fucking loser here, dude, but like I've never done any hard drugs in my life, and
Yeah, same.
I don't ever fucking plan to. And the reason why is because of my parents, right? Like I hate that so much, right? It drives me nuts. I can't be around fucking junkies. I can't be around people that are fucked up. I have friends of mine that have used cocaine in the past, and let's say back. I don't even drink for fuck's sake, but back in the day, we'd be at a bar having a couple of drinks, hanging out, and they'd go do some coke in the bathroom, and I'd be like, dude, get the fuck away from me. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
like, what is your fucking problem, right? So like, I would move to a different bar or hang out with some different people, and like the fact that it's so widespread, dude. You walk into any bar in St. Louis, somebody's got a bump. Somebody has some
Oh, easily.
every time,
Yeah.
dude. And I never realized that, dude. Like when I turned 21, I was like, cool, like, hey, we're gonna go to the bar, have a couple beers, shoot some pool, play some darts, go home, right? It is what it is, right? But when I realized that there was that whole like other dominion of paraphernalia in the bar present with me, I'm like, dude, like you motherfuckers are really fucked up. Like, I don't mean fucked up in the head.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm drunk. I'm like, you guys are fucked up out of your mind. You guys are blacked out, hammered, on coke, speeding, and whatever the hell else you do. I was like, damn, I had no fucking clue. But it just, oh my God, it drives me nuts, man. It drives me nuts. I understand what you're saying, but it just, oh, God
It's
bless.
no, it's something about St. Louis that it was like, I don't know how to say it. It wasn't great cocaine, but it was always there. It was like, I remember I told somebody, I was like, listen, I have legal residency in Colombia because I've done so much cocaine in St. Louis. It was that bad.
That's
But
Oh,
that's
oh goodness.
fucked. That's absolutely fucked. But I remember first time I experienced that, like, and all of us drink in high school. Okay. We all did it, right?
Yeah.
Some more than others, of course. But, me and my buddies every weekend, we'd go out and find a party and, split a 30 rack, hang out. And I'll never forget, I walk into this party and it's just me and my three buddies, and we knew this girl that was there or whatever. And it's all older guys there, right? For some reason, it's always the 30 to like 35-year-old guys hanging out with 16-year-old,
yeah.
which is fucked up, right? It's illegal as shit. It's fucked up. But we go to that party and we're just drinking a beer, hanging out, and we're kind of sketched out. And I walk into the bathroom, take a piss, and these guys are in there snorting shit. And they're like, "Hey, dude, you want to take a Xanax?" I'm like, "Hey, dude, you want me to punch you in your fucking mouth?" Like, I was like, "No, I do not want to take a fucking Xanax." And we left. We fucking just left. It's just weird how prevalent it is out here. Back in the day, man, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it wasn't as open. Nowadays, dude, like
Oh my gosh.
it's everywhere.
It is. And it's crazy to say that too, because now, I mean, if you hear the songs that are coming out, it's somewhat promoted, right? It's considered cool and hip. And it's kind of sad that all ages are listening to that. And what do they want to do? They want to do those type of things. And it sucks that they have those as role models. And it's such an easy access to get a hold of. I mean, crying out loud, wasn't there, I don't know, some teenager around this local area a few years back that was on the news about having brought some, I think, codeine or maybe Xanax, I'm sure more popular or not popular, but just out, but got caught. It's terrible to hear, to say that our upcoming leaders per se, are
Sure,
having
yeah.
these issues. It's sad.
Hey, listen, where you and I worked, there was a lot of the leaders of St. Louis that were there getting that.
Yeah.
I believe that. I believe that 100%.
Jake, a lot of things happen there at night during those business hours where oh yeah, there's a lot of
Oh
things
yeah.
happening.
And that sucks to hear that because I fucking like that place a lot. And I know what you're talking. We're not going to say names on here, of course, but
Yeah,
I
I
please.
love the place.
I fucking
Delicious food.
dude took my
Great.
wife there for Valentine's Day this year. Like it's a fucking great place. It's upscale. It's nice. I wore one of my nice suits that I have. She
Ooh,
dressed like dude. Like you never would fucking think that being there. You never would think that.
But it's not only there though. It's
It's
everywhere.
everywhere though. It's
Just
everywhere.
yeah,
But you
it's
would think like that place would be exclusionary from those people. You know what I mean? It's it's all
yeah.
facade.
right.
That's right. That's what it is. But
Yeah.
I know you talked a little bit about like afterwards, what happened into that to get me where I'm at now, to be even talking to you guys, even be alive. I, I tell people, I was this close to being just a eulogy instead of a testimony when it comes to drug addiction, because, I did have an overdose in St. Louis. I didn't know, getting girl or boy or whatever the nickname is for it. I got heroin. I'm like, oh, well, I'll just do it. I mean, I was feeling at the end of my rope. I was feeling so bad about things. Like, this really, who gives a shit? So, I didn't think about it for a long time, but like, geez, I overdosed. I really tried to kill myself with it. Um, and then going over there and then feeling like not only have I died from drugs, I've also been arrested for the same stuff. Pushed me to like, can I still redeem myself after all the horrible things I've done? People that I've hurt, people that I've abused, and I like to think that I can't, but that just makes me work harder. Like you gotta work that much more difficult through what you're going through to be able to get to the point. So, having that rising up recovery with Tony Gingello, who unfortunately passed away
Sorry.
from
Yeah.
blood clot. I mean, he's still a young guy. He's still 60 years old, and I took over the radio show. We were Rise Up Recovery on 106.3. Then it went to Rise Up Recovery on 100.9 WXIR. And we were having a lot of guests. Like it was campaign season here in Rochester. So we had a lot of politicians that were coming on and like, this is how I'm going to get rid of drugs. This is how I'm going to do this. And I would just ask him, like, well, how? And they were like, well, I'd like to. I'm like, well, listen, I've been in recovery for a little bit. What would be able to help you? And then it became community activists, then other people that had been struggling. So I got to meet a lot of nonprofits in Rochester, a lot of community organizations, and it was cool. I mean, sometimes you meet people like women's shelters and you find out it's a lot different for a woman in recovery than it is a man in recovery. And I started volunteering. We got other people, I got partners of mine, and it was just a few years ago that kid I went to school with, his name is Brian Dezio. When we were little kids, we would go to Chuck E. Cheese together. Uh, but I remember his mother passed away. I mean, horribly from cancer when we were in fourth grade. I mean, one of the most amazing people that you'd ever meet. Was always doing things for people, going to church, helping the community. Um, she got a very aggressive breast cancer that they were trying to work on, but she really suffered at the end. So that was heartbreaking for him. And then by the time he was 14, his little brother killed himself. I mean, just a kid, a teen, um, and pretty horrifically too. And so, and then those few years ago, his dad passed away on Christmas morning, just like my
Fuck's sake,
grandfather.
give this kid a break.
Yeah,
That's
Fuck.
yeah. I mean, and his
terrible.
dad was such a force to reckon with, of just a man's man, businessman, but did stuff for people. I mean, he went over. We love the Buffalo Bills here in Rochester, so he would give jerseys away to people, like signed jersey. If he found out that a kid was over at the Golisano Children's Hospital here, he would just send over a gift. I mean, some of that stuff was expensive, like 500, 600, Stephon Diggs football, that was like $1,000. And they were like, listen, you understand that if it might not go well with the treatment, and if you give this gift, he said, oh, I don't care. What if it makes him happy during that time, they could just, it'll be good for his family to hold on to as well. So Brian has a big heart, and he said, I really want to, I need to do something, or else I'm assuming he said, listen, I'm gonna go crazy. I need to start giving. I opened a restaurant, Capone's Italian Eatery. I've got my HVAC business. I'm making enough that we need to give back. And I said, well, Tony passed away. It'll be you and me like this. I said, so let's see what we can do. So we started giving out turkeys on Christmas and Thanksgiving, and we did the radio show. And we would have, I would start working with the legislators that I met during the radio show, and I would say, hey, Mercedes Vasquez Simmons, she was boxing's first woman boxing promoter, and she became a legislator. And I said, why don't we go into the city in your area that's been hit the worst, and we'll just give food away. What do we need to do? I said, just be there and help us hand them out. So we just got trucks and pulled up and handed them out. And then it was like, well, Christmas hams, we got to give Christmas hams away and meals. So meals to go. And then in the past year, we just said, let's start giving haircuts for kids. Let's get a group of people together that want to give and get them out there and have counselors talk to the kids while they're getting their haircuts and just say, hey, what is it about school that you love? What do you want to do? Talk about positivity coaching.
Oh, I love
And
that. I
oh
love
man, it
that.
was the best. And these kids, they're eager. I mean, the kids in the city of Rochester, I mean, I can't tell you how horrendous it is here. My city is suffering. My city is struggling. Every single day, there's something that happens that makes such an impact of violence in our city. And it's scary. There's been people shot for no reason. There's been Kia boys. My car, I live in a nice end here. I live in a beautiful area on East Avenue, top floor in the corner here. And my car, I've heard it got broken into twice. So
Mm.
and I don't care how big, bad you are. I don't care how many guns. I don't care how muscle. If some person wants to be ignorant and break your stuff, it's very difficult to be able to track them down and find them, to be able to. And even if they did, these people don't have the money to pay you back for it, even if you did. But instead, I said, let's go talk to the kids. Let's do mentorship programs. So we joined, the mayor invited us to a gala, mayor's mentorship gala. So now we've got kids. Some of them are doing phenomenal in school. Others, not great in school. But the commonality is by putting them together, they're trying to get them to aspire to do something greater. So I'm happy to say that even though we've only had our foundation formed for the past year, out of all the places in Rochester, we have the third most mentees in the city right now,
Good
which
job, man.
means
That's
it
awesome.
means jobs, it
Awesome.
means internships. So we've been very blessed for that. And most recently, Matt, I know you've seen a lot of it. We've been going to women's shelters here in Rochester.
Yeah.
Bethany House, Jennifer House. Today, we just went to the Bright Star Community House. All the people that have been affected either by severe domestic violence, abuse, human trafficking. Rochester is a hub here. Um, and also just people that, I mean, the addiction, the recovery alone. Bright Star today, we worked with 5 women. We got them food, we got them lunch, we got them desserts that were specially made for them. We got gifts for them. We had their hair styled and cut by somebody, and none of it, no cost to them. And then we also had some people, some of my friends come in. They said, well, the house needs some painting. We also want to do some HVAC work. We want to come in and clean. So while we're doing cleaning the house, why don't we send you girls out to go get your nails done? I mean, all this stuff is donated by men just like us that work long hours, that their sales, stuff that really takes a lot out of you. Blue collar guys, they just want to give back. So we've been very fortunate here to have allies, a lot of male allies that are willing to go out there and help in the community. So that's where we're at now, and we want to make it. I mean, right now we're on a monthly basis. We want to make this a weekly basis because that's what it's going to have to take to make a change.
Yeah, I agree because you know what? Everything that you just said is perfect. Okay. Everything you just said that what you guys have done for those people is perfect. One thing that you did that you didn't mention that is the most important is you gave those people a normal day in life.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I found personally I try to be a mentor to some people I know, and I try to help out wherever I can, whenever I can. I think that's my true passion in life is I've been very blessed to make a good living what I do, and I was raised by good people other than my parents, right? And I've always tried to be that first person to help out, right? Because I just feel like I can give so much to the world, so I got to do that, right? That's similar to your situation, right? What I found, dude, is when people have those traumatic experiences when they're you just either, domestic abuse or addiction or anything, right? Troubled youth, all they want is one day of life to be just normal. All they
To
want to
feel
do
human.
is to feel human. Exactly right. They want to feel human. They want to feel loved. They want to feel respected. They want to be able to go do these normal things that they see maybe on TV or maybe on social media, wherever, but they just want that sense of normality, right? I mean, the greatest gift you can give somebody that's homeless is a home for the day, right? You get them a hotel room, right? Like that's because that's a sense of normal, right? They have power, they have a TV, they have a microwave, they have a shower, like they have a door with a bolt on it that keeps them safe. Like the sense of normality is the key factor there, and that's what you're providing those people. Fuck everything else, right? Those are great, but like that's not the core thing, right? The getting the hair done, nails, that's great. You're treating them as a normal human. And what you're doing is subconsciously rewiring their brain to make them realize, oh, this is how life should be. I can get the willpower in me to make a change to have this be a regular basis.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That's
Exactly.
exactly what you're doing, and that's the greatest gift that you can give somebody.
Nate, I got to tell you that you said it the perfect way, in a way that I worked with this place called the Need and Co Salon. They're right up the street from me. They're in this beautiful building. I mean, their rent is almost $10,000 just a month for this hair salon. It's gorgeous though. And I spoke to a woman. Her name is Miss Julie, and she runs the Miss Julie's School of Beauty. And in Rochester, it's a very new thing. It's not. There's nothing like it. She takes people who are human trafficked, sex trafficked, and she says, if you were trafficked, we will get your record expunged and we will give you an opportunity to work at a salon, get your cosmetology license and work. I contacted her just because I had a job where I was working with human trafficking victims. And I said, listen, can we do something special for some of these girls at the Bethany house? And she was like, well, absolutely. What's going on? I said, I asked them if they wanted anything like gifts. And I had somebody tell me that she doesn't think she deserves them. She feels like she failed as a mother, and she doesn't doesn't want to get anything if she can't even take care of the kids that she has. And she said, and it made her it makes you cry. Like you even if you wanted to, just certain things like not having your license and having a felony are stepping stones that people take for granted. And she said, well, how about this? I'll put you in touch with somebody. Her name is Lindsay Ray Betts and Jordan Ray Betts. They're cousins, and they work together at the salon. So they were able to get 10 women together. They were able to do hair treatments and all this stuff. And it was a beautiful thing. But the thing that I saw that spoke to exactly what you just said was, one of the women said they put her down, they were washing her hair, and she was just getting touched. And they sprayed a mist of, some sort of eucalyptus, and they put a weighted vest on her to make her feel relaxed. And I just looked over and you could see her shoulders kind of just go down and her head, and she wasn't in that fight or flight mode, even being in a new area. And she started crying. And I saw Lindsay look over and she was like, I'm sorry. She's like, it's okay. You can cry. This is a safe space.
Yeah.
It's okay to cry. And she said, I'm here with you. And she said, just enjoy this because you deserve it. And you know, I I had to turn away because I was tearing up and I didn't, the news was there and stuff. I was like, but it made me think, like, being able to touch someone, even just hold somebody for a moment and just make them not feel like they're going to be hurt, or they're safe in some place and they don't have to be scared if there's someone going to do something to them, was something so small but so generous to her soul that it empowered her. Because when she left smiling, she she said she felt beautiful. I mean, the transition, and the best thing is they all felt like they deserved it. So I think, Nate, when you say something like that, I think it speaks to the heart of the kind of work that's needed in St. Louis and in Rochester.
I think you're so right. And one thing as well that you mentioned that is another thing that I should have said earlier is that lady that you're working with at salon. Um, another great gift you can give somebody is opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Is I mean, people can be like you said, some people lack those privileges. I mean, I know people unfortunately that have been on the wrong side of the law and they're good people, but just made bad mistakes, right? Bad decisions at the time, and they don't have their license, they can't drive, they can't do certain things that I mean, God bless. I drive a truck. I hate driving, right? but it's a blessing that I can do it. You know, it's a blessing that you
Absolutely.
have the option. Some people have license and don't have cars, but you know, my whole point is what you're also working with that lady at the salon to do, and it's just give those people another chance and opportunity, right? Because people will feel trapped, right? And whenever they feel trapped, they give up. And once you give up, it's over, right? Once you've stopped fighting that fight internally, it doesn't matter what resource that you get, it's never going to help, right? But like to get to that person before they give up completely and give them that sense of normality, like we just said, give them that
Mhm.
love that we just said, give them that opportunity, you're giving them the recipe for just pure success, you know? And is it always going to work out? Probably not. But the fact of the matter is that they had that opportunity and they had that support from you. And now they know, hey, if I do slip up again, at least I know a support system is going to help me get back. And if I get it
Right.
right this time, perfect. But if I don't, it is what it is. I'm human, you know, and it's just I love that, man. I don't know what I can do. We could talk more after this, of course, man. But
Absolutely.
this hits me in my heartstrings, dude, fucking straight up. I mean, I get it. It hits me hard. If there's any resource or anything I can do to help in any certain way, the podcast, Matt and I mean, you have our resources to the full extent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Nate,
absolutely.
I like to add, Jake, you also give them hope and the courage to somewhat restart, right? To say, hey, this is an opportunity. This is a safe space where you can talk to us and we can use our resources to do something different that you didn't do yesterday, right? For the positive, just to be better and to hopefully we can create some stepping stones to get to that next point where it would be benefit for them to get out of that hole that they were in. So
Yeah.
it's great that you provide that. And so again, thank you for
Thanks,
everything.
Matt. I think that can help segue into, two things, or one, and thank you for that, Matt. One is, I do get to talk to them about, some of my experience. And sometimes they're like, you used to smoke crack cocaine. I probably smoked your body weight. Uh, I said, absolutely. And I'm also, one of the big things for me is advocating for felons. I'm a reformed felon. You talked about opportunity. I know when got back to Rochester and I was like, I can't believe it. I got denied for some jobs where I'm like, I've held or I've been accused of holding hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars worth of stuff in conspiracy. My attorney was $50,000 alone. And somebody told me, I remember I was like, what kind of life am I living? And I said, well, listen, I could run the money over the bank. I said, from the sales thing, but ooh, Jake, there is almost $1,500 in this bag in cash. So we love your enthusiasm, but we don't we just it's a lot of money. And oh, yeah. And I was like, what is going on? So getting background checks, being able to uh, work with a felony that I'm gonna have to carry over. The opportunity. Well, one of the reasons why I do this work too, Nate, is Baden Street Settlement. This is a place here in Rochester. It's a nonprofit that has helped people here for almost 200 years. So, or 125 years, and it's been such yeah, oh yeah, oh my God, the settlement it was founded originally by women who wanted to be able to help immigrants move in to Rochester and acclimate into the society in a certain way because it's difficult. The language, whatever else, the money. And I got an opportunity because somebody was listening to the radio show, saw me on social media and said, we like what you say about recovery, but we want you to be able to work with a sect inside our management program, care management. Would you be interested in coming for an interview? And I was like, I love that. I have a felony. I have this. Just come in and just see what you see. And I got hired. And
Awesome.
I remember I got to work with human trafficking victims, and some of them were through Safe Court, which is a human trafficking court here in Rochester, and they help women who've been severely abused. In fact, the reason I met my girlfriend Abby is because she was working as an advocate for the court program, and I was just kind of at my wit's end with this one client because she was schizophrenic, she was suicidal, she had hurt herself, she was victimized, abused, molested at an early age. There was rapes. I mean, there was, she just, she was sex trafficked. So having somebody like that, and I'm like, I can speak to her, but like, let's get her to court. She has to talk to somebody. Because I mean, like, as a male role model, as a positive role model, to show them that it's okay to be with some men and talk to them and trust with them. There's only so much we had, but I remember we went to court, and she had just talked with one of the counselors, and I said, "Well, what's wrong?" She said, "I hear some voices." She's like, "What do they tell you?" She said, "They say that I'm ugly and that I deserved it, and I should probably kill myself because there's nobody loves me." And fuck. I'm like, motherfucker. So we get down to the courthouse, and she's, kind of like a child in the way that she acts, and she works with people. And I remember she walked in and she saw Addie, my girlfriend, and she just looked at her and she ran over and gave her a hug and started crying. There was something intuitive about the way she saw her to be able to open up and talk. And I was like, that's the kind of I said, that's the kind of woman I admire. And we've been together. I told her, what did I say? I said, we should probably meet and do like a peer collaborative. It'll be at dinner, so we can at least talk and eat. And then she's like, so it's not a date. No, a peer collaborative. So we've been together ever since. But I think when we talk about opportunity, that job gave me an opportunity to do even more because it showed me what a small population it was. But that small population has been hurt and abused more than anything else here. I mean, and like I said, it's a hub. Rochester, I don't get it. I mean, Rochester, we're the third biggest city. There's New York City, there's Buffalo, there's Rochester. We're a hub. I don't get it. There's something about, people being traded like drugs. But the thing is, you run out of cocaine, you never run out of flesh. So you can still get more money out of people. And it's a bizarre, horrific reality that we have. But I think like Nate said, being able to work around opportunities, and I think you guys are doing it right now, being able to just share about this. It makes a huge difference. I think people know it has a big impact. They'll see something like Denzel Washington or Keanu Reeves in some action movie, and you'll hear sex trafficking, human trafficking, and it'll be scary. But putting a real face to it with some of the horrors that these people face is really important. So thank you guys for letting me advocate on that part.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it's an epidemic, right? It's a big thing. St. Louis is also a hub. I'm not sure why exactly. I guess maybe because we have a couple big highways go through here that are kind of, stretching across. But I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of crimes that people could commit out there. And, I have forgiveness in my heart for 99% of them. Human trafficking, I don't know if I could find it in my heart just at this moment to forgive because it's slavery in a nutshell, but it's not just slavery. It's I mean, it's sexual abuse. It's physical abuse. It's everything under the sun, right? I mean, it's everything that it's almost like a fate worse than death, right? Like you murder somebody, they suffer for a second, they're dead, it's over, right? Whatever.
Continuous.
They traffic somebody, they're suffering from the very moment that they get in that situation to the very bitter end of whatever situation that is, right? I mean, it's a fate worse than death, in my opinion. And if you want to come on here once a week and advocate for it, I don't give a damn. I mean, it's a huge thing that needs to be talked about, and for you to make those impacts for those people, I mean, it's incredible. I wish I could do something around here. I don't know where to start. I'm sure you could help out, but yeah, man. I mean, it's such a huge thing, and I just greatly appreciate you sharing just a little bit about that and just kind of the strides that you've made with these people. I mean, because if more people had that support, I'm not saying it would solve the problem, but it would definitely help.
And you know what? If we can get one person out there or 100 or whatever the case,
It's worth it.
it's all worth it, right? Or even if that one person had talked to someone else because of a thought that they heard about from our podcast, that's all worthwhile, and that's the impact that we want to give and we want to share and make everything in the nutshell be better, right? Because it's all about giving and helping, and that's what me and Nate strive for in this podcast. So
That's why I was honored to be on, man.
I joke with
Your
Matt all
platform.
the time about it. I joke with Matt all the time about it. Well, me and Matt and I talk fairly frequently through the week, and Matt has been this podcast will not be where it's at without Matt Alexander. I mean, he's just been the best co-host I could imagine. The dude's a machine, hardworking, loving, great dad. God bless you. One of the most incredible human beings I've ever met. And I'll tell you, when we joke about it, when we talk, I'm like, I always tell Matt, I'm like, dude, I'm like $2,300 in the hole for this podcast. I haven't made a fucking penny, right? And I'm a fiscal guy. I am all about my money. I'm all about the numbers. Always have been, always will be, right? Because money is survival for me. Okay. But in this case, I'm like, Matt, like, it doesn't matter if we never make 1 cent and I'm $5,000 in the hole, 10,000, because if this saves one person from suicide, if this helps
Oh.
one person to the road to recovery rather than addiction, if this makes one person start their business that they've been putting off for 3 years because they were scared, if this makes one person follow their dreams, it was worth every fucking second and every penny that Matt and I put into it. Every second.
That's the best way to, it's the best way to carry the best sentiment that you can have about this kind of business. Because I'll tell you what, I've always said, I'd rather serve the poor but never make a fortune than become rich and never make a difference. I know plenty of people. I know people have made hand over fist that could retire right now at our age. But when you think about what you want to change in the world, has those dollars, what have they done? Have they bought anything? Have they changed someone's life? We talk about if you change that just 1% of people, you've made 100% difference in the lives of someone else. It might just be one, but that's 100% difference that you didn't have before with that 1%.
Oh, wow.
That's beautiful.
Very-
It's not too often, man, that I get to hear words that just really resonate. Like, we meet a lot of cool people on here. I'm not knocking anybody. All of our guests have been awesome, right? But it's not often that I get to actually relate to somebody like that in that situation. And then as well as where, your core and values of what you're talking about is something that I believe firmly forever. And to hear somebody else, have those same values, but make it come to life and come to fruition. It's just, it's an honor, man. It's an honor to be able to talk with you about these things because it's not, nobody talks about them,
No, I mean, it means the world to me because it's here sometimes. This is, selfishly, this helps me, kind of get over my own stuff, be able to talk to you guys and say, it's not easy being a reformed felon. It's not easy seeing some of the things that go on. I mean, there's a emotional stamina that people have. I mean, Matt knows it, right with the healthcare nurse, certain things you see and Nate, just with your family, the parents, that there's a certain stamina level you have. And sometimes you feel like you're either building up a resistance and sometimes you feel you're feeling almost more sensitive to it. I thought I was feeling like, it was a manly thing. Anything that goes on, you sort of just power through it. And it's not healthy. That's not healthy. So this is a healthy way for me to be able to kind of just decompress and be able to share something. And I speak a lot in public, and sometimes I try to imagine it was my young self in the back of the room,
Absolutely.
at the very back of the room, maybe when I was 15 or 16 or maybe 20, and I need to, you have to be impactful. You have to try to find the right words to say. I mean, I know that AA and sometimes has stuff where like one's too many, 1,000's never enough. And you hear all these little things. I don't think one saying ever is a change anybody's life. I think it sometimes helps, but I do think people should strive for finding new ways to be able to inspire people and motivate them out of certain things. And I will say that about crime too. I wish there was a way to talk about like addiction to crime because there is an element to it that does feed some people, maybe not being loved enough or not having a father figure. That's something I struggle with. So I was finding other men in my life that I could base that on and say, well, if I can't impress him or make him proud, maybe I can impress this person. It will fill in that feeling, that gap in my heart that I felt. So being able to do that goes a long way for me.
I want to touch on what you just said because I've done a ton of research on this. I'm a big reader into psychology and, weirdly enough, astrophysics. Those are the two subjects that I really like for some reason. Makes no fucking sense, but and I'll never do anything with either of them. But
you're on a watch list now.
Yeah. Tell me about it. But I'm probably on a couple lists from the crazy we've talked about on here a couple times. But no, so when I was doing some research and I was just kind of doing some analysis of like what it is. So I grew up in a poor area of St. Louis. I always say, didn't really have heat in the winter months, didn't have AC in the summer. Matt is in the same boat as I, right? So crazy enough, only lived about maybe 4 or 5 blocks away from each other, dealing with the same struggles. Funny enough.
Yeah.
But there's a couple things that I think stem all these problems, right? Is one, I think that kids, and it's inevitable, right? But every kid is going to experience some level of trauma. Okay. Now that could be a severe trauma, like a parent passing away, or a brother or sister passing away, or getting molested or something, or it could be a light trauma. Your boyfriend broke up with you, you fucking broke your scooter. I don't know, but some form of trauma always happens, right, to these kids. So what happens, right? If they don't have the right influences to express and work through those traumas, they look to other influences, right, for those remedies because they need that dopamine, they need that sense of security, they need that sense of whatever. So there's 1,000 other different ways that those kids can go, right? They can go to, maybe cultural figures like maybe certain people in music and in the industry where they see those people flashing guns, shooting every day, doing drugs, being with multiple women, all that good stuff, no values, right? But it sells weird, it sells really well and it looks cool. Okay. So they're getting that dopamine hit, right? Hey, I'm having a really bad time. I put on this music, it's talking about all this evil shit. Now I feel good. That's who I aspire to be. Okay. In my opinion, that's part of it. But I think on the other part of it as well is just like these kids, they're being influenced by the wrong things, but at the same time, they're not being able to deal with their trauma, and it's just being like that trauma that started with a little infection in your finger is now turning into gangrene, and now it's taking over your
Mm,
arm. Now it's taking over your torso. Now it's down to your chest. Now it's in your neck. Now it's everywhere. And it just spreads like wildfire if they don't get help. And that's where it stems, man. Every drug addict I've ever met has had some form of childhood trauma that was never addressed, that was never brought up, that was never talked about or worked through. And they're suppressing it continuously instead of addressing it and dealing with it. So I feel like and this, once again, I don't expect my words here to ever make a big impact in the world, but I'm just saying if there is a way where people could get into the ground floor early and interact with these kids, or one, the best thing would be preventing childhood trauma, right? Preventing it
yeah.
where no kids are getting molested, no kids are getting abused. Obviously, if parents pass away, it's a different story. But if you can prevent it, prevent it. If you cannot prevent it, getting in as soon as possible on the ground floor to do damage control and put out those fires before it gets worse. Because Jimmy Johnson, that's on the baseball team, has a bright future ahead of him. His older brother gets killed in a car accident. He fucking gets survivor's guilt because his parents are all fucked up about it. Now he starts
Mm.
drinking at 15. Then he moves to the next thing. Then he moves to the next thing. Then he moves to the next thing. Oh, he lost his baseball scholarship. Oh, now he fucking got a DUI, killed somebody. Now he's in jail. Like that's how it happens, man. That's exactly how it happens. And not to get too ranty there, but like I just feel like if we could combat those things early on, I think as a society, our success rate of people would be a lot higher, to be honest.
I
Absolutely.
agree completely.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sorry, that
It's
was
funny when you were talking about that. That does remind me of a buddy of mine. His name's Javier. He was a big baseball star when he was in Puerto Rico, and he was looking to get picked up by somebody. And unfortunately, due culturally, his cousin was killed in a shooting down there, and he took that as a responsibility that he needed to do something as a man or whatever the machismo was, and he was committed a murder. He did time for that
Man,
murder, a substantial amount of time. But when he got out, he was, that was something like a trauma, something that happened, led him to it afterwards. And now you know, he talks about trauma, he talks about addiction and how much that played into it. And as soon as you brought the baseball thing, it's just blows my mind because that was trauma and it was so close to that story right when you were saying that.
I have a good buddy of mine. I'll say this, and I'm not going to say his name because we're not too close of friends anymore, but he was one of my best friends growing up. This guy is a Polish guy, and if you know who I'm talking about, you know, you'll know who, and I love you to death, man. If you ever need anything, you have a fucking bed in my house always. But this big, dumb Polak, I mean, big as a fucking house, strong as a fucking ox, man. This guy, I called him my fucking guardian angel because this guy, if I was ever stuck under a boulder, he could like use one hand and flip it. This guy is the freakishly strongest guy I've ever met in my life. Dude was all state for his position in football, fucking like 60 tackles one season. The dude's nuts, man. He was nuts. He was nuts. Okay. He went to college and he had a kind of a rough childhood. Both of his parents were alcoholics. I think his dad kind of beat him up a little bit a couple times, fucked him up. So like the normality in his life was getting drunk and getting aggressive. Okay. We would drink in high school. Cool. We go to a party from, let's say, 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. and then we go home. Okay. The night's over. He would continuously drink, continuously drink, continuously drink, continuously drink. Okay. So he went to a fucking D2 school, started as a freshman. Okay. Just was kicking ass. Alcohol fucked him up. He called me 3 a.m. one night. He's about 4 hours away and says, Nate, I can't fucking stand it here anymore. I need to leave here. I drove at fucking 2 a.m. It took me till 6 a.m. to get there. He fucking didn't even take his furniture, dude. He got a bag of clothes, hopped in my car, and we drove home, and he never went back. Okay. He didn't leave on his own accord. He was getting kicked out because of his alcohol problem. Okay. Fast forward a couple years, he knocks up this girl at the time, and she's having a bit. She's gonna have a baby. He was going on the right path there. Like he hasn't really been drinking too much at that moment. And then, unfortunately, God rest this kid's soul, but the baby was born very prematurely, and it passed away, unfortunately. This is when the plane just, this is rock bottom for him. Okay. And the guy, poor guy, he just was drinking every day, but it wasn't like we'd go out and have fun and drink. He's the kind of guy that he goes to work every day, and unfortunately, he's still like this from what I've heard. Um, it's different if you're an alcoholic and you go out to bars and you're drinking top shelf shit and it's fun for you, right? It's different in that regard. If you can only have fun when you're drunk, that's a different kind of alcoholic. When you're an alcoholic just to not kill yourself every day, not to, just to be somewhat tolerant of your life at that moment. The guy works doing hard labor, makes fair money, probably 40,000 a year, right? Whatever, nothing crazy, but it's enough for him because he lives with his parents still. But all of his money all his paycheck goes to alcohol, and it's not premium; it's $6 handles kind of alcohol, just pure poison, right? And from sun up to sundown, just all day, drunk all day. And it just bothers the fuck out of me, dude, to see people go down that slope because this kid would, I am convinced I would have put my money, my last life dollar on it for him to go pro. Like, he was that good, man. He was that good that he could have went pro. But because of the childhood trauma and things that he was trying to combat, plus the trauma of him losing a baby, it just added on. It was too much for him. And, maybe it's my fault. Maybe it's our friend's fault too. Like maybe we weren't as supportive as we should have been, but we were young kids. Maybe we didn't know. I don't know what the deal is, but not trying to make excuses. We could have been there for him more often, but like that's just a prime example of somebody who could have had big, big plans. And unfortunately, due to circumstances and his reaction to it, just has completely wrecked his life. And it's heartbreaking, dude. I fucking love the kid to death. I pray for him. I've cried over the kid. I fucking have been in arguments with my buddies over the kids over what to do, and we don't know what to do. I mean, we were all trying to progress ourselves in our life. We were all 20, 21 at the time when all this happened. I'm 27 now, and we were trying to get our life in order that we put him kind of on the back burner and it just got worse. So, I mean, it's just, I feel guilty about it. I don't know, man. It's just tough, but it happens. My whole point is that it happens.
I understand, and I'm sorry you went through that, but one of the things that as somebody that's put friends through that kind of thing, I can tell you that you shouldn't take as much responsibility because there's only so much that you can give while not sacrificing something for yourself. Because I know there's people, I mean, that have tried. I mean, I've died, I've screwed up, I've had felonies, I've hurt people, I've abused people, but I know now looking back at it, there was a couple times I was like, well, they should have been there for me when I was, it wasn't really, it wasn't ready, it wasn't my time, and probably I wouldn't have been able to accept it. And I mean, look at us. I mean, maybe if we went to school and they gave us a little bit more understanding about how to be able to be aware of trauma and things in school and learn from that and what to do in situations. Maybe if we can blame anybody, let's blame the teachers and the schools for not being, I don't know why I need to go to home ec to learn how to make a little cushion when I should have been learning some stuff about how to seriously take on somebody who might be suffering in my life from
I
some
agree.
sort of trauma or affliction.
Yeah,
I
I
agree,
agree too.
man. I've said this countless times, man. I've made well over six figures multiple years of my life and continuously to do so. And I have never used that fucking Y equals MX plus B all over two-way. I've never one time used that. So, I mean, I agree with you, dude. Like, people can live successful lives without these core fundamentals. I've always believed that education should be tailored to the career path that you want, just like college, right? I mean, if I'm going to college to be an engineer, I'm not going to take a reading composition class, right? Probably doesn't make, or a English composition. Probably doesn't make sense, right? I feel like as well in high school, they should have secular sections of that. You know, if you want to go into law enforcement, you want to be an EMT, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a nurse. Cool. You're taking the fundamentals, okay? You're taking your gym, you're taking your math, you're taking your science, the fundamentals, but you're also taking instead of home ec or fucking pottery, which I had to take, you know, and I liked it, it was cool, but
Sure.
it didn't, dude,
Yeah.
it didn't benefit me. I do nothing with pottery, right? I wish I could have taken a separate class that was going to progress me in my field, right? Or progress me in mental health or anything, right? Like if it started earlier, like you said, the success rates would be much more higher. I mean, it would
Yeah.
be a
Oh,
game
okay. Well, I think we know what we need to do. We need to make some sort of charter school with the three of us being the headmasters.
Yeah, you can financially support that, my friend. I'll
Jake,
because you
we
know
are
that
losing money.
yeah, you know damn well the state's not going to give us a dime from that.
Yeah, I think they should.
Well, I know we're a little over on what we, you know, the timeline we typically talk, but I mean, we've just been having such a good conversation. I just wanted to kind of, I don't want to let's say like wrap it up, but I want to get to the end of it, like, you know, what you're doing now. Obviously, we learned quite a bit about you, man, and I know there's a thousand more stories you can tell to prove your point here, but um, kind of like what's on the horizon now for you, Jake?
Yeah, what's next?
What's on the horizon? Well, I definitely want to start branching off to a podcast. I want to start getting those stories out there that are unique to people who have been, in that kind of lifestyle. I mean, people that, I've got people that are willing to talk about some of the, the horrors that you see, the hopefulness too, but gear it in a way that we can talk about addiction specifically, and we also put a bright spot on some lives where people can say, I've been through that, but this is also what you can do with that. I think when we have podcasts like this that you guys do, it's like you're learning, you're understanding, but I mean, you're even talking about doing something. I can't even remember the last time I was on a podcast and they're like, well, maybe we could talk about how we can help. I'm like, I've never had anybody ever ask that. It's about, you're not just doing stuff to get likes, you're doing stuff to help. And that says a lot. So for me, it's going to be branching into a podcast. I want to start writing a book. I've had some great blessings of some people that I've seen locally that have written books. Um, one of them I'll give a shout out to, Gina Gingello. She talks about the life of her father, Sammy Gingello, who was blown up in a car bomb here in Rochester during the A&B wars. Sammy G, The Untold Story of My Father. It's a great book, fantastic. It kind of goes over that. And I guess I was just hoping to be able to share in that same way, talk, be motivational speaker, do a podcast, and I would like to have my own addiction recovery business where I can be able to guide people through the recovery. I mean, I can always say that I can never guarantee that I can make you drug free or guarantee your recovery, but I can guarantee I've got the best network of people to help you get there. And I'm the most commitment out of somebody that you'll find. So that's the direction we're headed in. As far as the Dezio and Gingello Foundation, we're still continuing to grow. Brian Dezio and I still planning on doing more. We've got upcoming stuff. You'll like this. This spring, we're going to have kids from the Martin Luther King Jr. School, number 9 in Rochester, up the street, work with the Italian American Community Center, and we're going to have the kids and the older generation of Italian Americans meet together and play bocce in a league together,
Oh, I love that.
and have pizza and have food and hang out. Because one of the things about it is the aging population of Italian Americans it's a different thing. You want to be able to preserve all that, but at the same time, in the city, they're very concerned about making sure that the kids are safe, that they're getting the right kind of guidance, getting it. So it seemed like the perfect way to collaborate in that. So that's our next event.
I love that. It sounds like a good introduction to values. And
Big
I
time.
think not just African American kids, I think all young kids in inner cities of all
Mhm.
races and denominations or whatever you want to call it. lack value because they're just not taught it. And I know as a fellow Italian man myself, I will tell you that Italians, if there's one thing that we do best, is that we do hold true to our values. And you know, anytime we're always open to sharing our values and letting you know how we feel about things, right? It's kind of in our DNA. But for you to pair those two together, I mean, it's only going to be a recipe for success. You know, it's just going to be a lot of older, you know, people in those generations sharing wise wisdom moments with younger kids and hopefully inspire them to have those same values and core functions. So I mean, I think it's a yeah, man. You're the chef in the kitchen and you just made your gourmet meal. I mean, that's exactly what it is.
Stealing
Mamma
that.
mia. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God bless. Well, I'll tell you what, man. I want you to just the last couple of minutes here, plug yourself in as much as you can. Tell people where they can find you, where they can get involved, what they can do to help, anything like that. Just plug yourself into every facet.
Absolutely. Hey, I want you guys to go on, check out the Guido Bandito on Instagram. You'll check that out. It'll kind of go over some of the people that I meet, some of the work that we do for the foundation. If you want to go to even my Facebook, it's under Jake Bishop, Rochester, New York. You can just check out all my stuff. I've got about 5,000 followers on there. It just continues to grow every single day. The Dezio and Gingello Foundation, you can check that out on Facebook too. We're going to start having the website come up soon. It's got everything from our interviews with the news, everything with some of the events that we've been to. And now we're going to start talking to some more of the kids. They want to start doing some more of their promotional work. They're pretty talented. I mean, they're only 14 to 17 years old, but they want to start doing some promotion stuff on there too.
I love it, brother. I love it. Well, guys, I'll tell you what, if you've made it this far, you know, episode 25, probably one of our most memorable, impactful episodes yet. Thank you guys for joining us on this journey. Jake, obviously, thank you so much for being our debut 25 episode guest. I mean,
Thank you
I
guys.
can't think of a better conversation to have than what we've had. I mean, this has just been flawless from first minute to the last here. And guys, if you made it this far, check out all of Jake's stuff on every link. You know, we'll try to get those links into all of our postings on here as well. He's got our endorsement. He's got the Be Better podcast has his back 110%. And like, share, subscribe, check us out on TikTok, send us a message, scream at us. I don't care what you do, but if you haven't done anything, please just try to be better every day.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jake.
Guys.